Ooh, busy day.
Oh yeah, you got you know who coming tomorrow, right?
Sunday.
Oh, lame.
Still plenty of work to do.
Well, I just got a notification that you're live.
Oh, thank you.
Well, it's nice to know those work. I
I
am.
was I always appreciate it when somebody knows I'm live.
Yeah. Well, that means people actually show up. So
Well, we'll see, won't we?
I had a truck shift I signed up for today.
You did you say a truck sniff?
Truck shift.
Oh, good for you, Jack.
I know it's those early ones, but honestly, I don't mind them anymore. I just for the next week or so, I think I have like one truck shift, so it's all gonna be on the floor while the store's open, which is kind of.
So you only like truck, huh?
I like truck. I've gotten the hang of cashier for the most part. Last time I was over there was just a few times that I needed assistance, but I finally learned how to do most basic things on the cashier. Hi, Miss Carpenter, which is always great because then I actually know what to do if they come in. And like I told um your roommate, if you ever come into Old Navy, I'm making you get a credit card because it's good on me.
Good for you, Jack.
But I need to go shopping there sometime. That's the dream.
Bert.
When I got the money, I'm gonna get some new clothes and it's gonna be great.
We got paid today, right?
No, I get paid Wednesday, I found out.
Bung.
I was talking to one of the other workers and I said, "Oh yeah, you get paid every Friday." And they said, "No, you get paid every Wednesday. It goes into your account." And I think what he said about Friday was that I got into the system by Friday, so I would get paid that following Wednesday, which I did.
Oh, you
So,
did get paid.
yeah, but only for the 2 shifts, aka the training I did and then that one 9-hour shift. This next paycheck is gonna be the good one because I got a bunch of I worked almost every single day this week except Thursday.
Oh, look at that. I got a slim comment from AC. I appreciate those.
Yeah. You ever been asked to be in an ad before or
I have,
interesting.
although I was a lot younger.
Yeah, well, still, it's pretty great.
uh, was asked to go on a runway
Ooh,
for, I guess they were showing off the latest haircuts.
okay. Oh, loves my sweatshirt. I know, it's great. I got one for your roommate too, so we're matching.
Meow, meow, meow.
I really like this sweatshirt. Thanks, Sam's Club. It was only 12 bucks.
Wow, that's a bargain.
For a nice sweatshirt like this, and it's not a cheap one either. It's the good stuff. Get it? Hee hee. I haven't been to Sam's Club in a hot minute.
I was there the other day. I
I know. I think I saw all that stuff you got.
think it was Monday.
Oh, you guys were there Monday? Wow, 12 bucks. I know. A lot of times if one of the sweatshirts or lingers for a while, they put it on this super sale. And then so you get it for a super cheap price. I think I waited a little bit for this to drop in price.
Ooh, playing with fire, huh?
Yep. Well, what happened was I saw it and I'm like, I don't need that. I got too many sweatshirts. And then I was at internship at the time and I saw one of the kids wearing it and I'm like, okay, that's a sign I need to get the sweatshirt. And I went back and it was on sale. So,
That's tight.
pretty great, huh?
Yeah.
Isn't that cool? I saw one of my intern kids at the store.
When do you start subbing?
I got a job at Old Navy, so I got too busy to do that.
Really?
Yep, I've been working at Old Navy every day, man.
Are you kidding?
No, I only had Thursday off this week.
You're working 6 days a week?
Basically, I keep signing up for people's shifts that people are dropping.
Oh, I got you.
I got a few more days off, but then they have a guy who gets sick, and I come in and shifts.
Well, you're the kingmaker.
I like my.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
I love it. Yeah, I'm working tomorrow, Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I'm gonna be a busy boy.
Can't
This,
imagine.
this Carpenter, I love Old Navy too. They're actually a pretty chill place to work.
Guess who I saw today?
Who did you see today?
Golden grams
Ooh.
and penis grams
Mm-hmm.
in the same car.
Oh. Did they talk to you?
No, they didn't see me, or
Uh,
didn't recognize me, probably.
yeah, because you haven't been there in so long.
Well, that and this new slim face.
Yeah. You look like $1,000,000.
Oh, thank you.
That's nice, huh?
I love it. Hey, by the way, thanks for the shirt.
That's another Vine one?
Yep.
Cool. I looked stuff on Vine yesterday because now I got my laptop back. I was actually able to look, so that was fun.
Whatever.
Somebody actually left me some slots, so I had a good time.
Hey, that ain't me, bro.
Ah, well, sometimes it's nice. And I got some more reviews done today. I didn't get as many done as yesterday because I got distracted with other stuff, but I
Mhm.
hit probably a few more tonight and I'm going to hit them big tomorrow cuz I work really late in the day, like the closing shift. So, I'll have plenty.
Okay.
But I've been jamming with those reviews, man. Hey, what's up? Why is someone getting stabbed in the background, if I may ask?
He's not getting stabbed. That's a some kind of gun that takes air samples looking for diseases.
It just looks like one of those you get at like a hardware store, you know?
And the lady there is frozen to death
Yeah, they're
because someone shut down the environmental system.
mhm. He was actually trying to save him, but she's already long gone.
Yeah, you don't come back from that, as far as I know. I mean, who knows, right?
Yep.
That's the beauty of the show.
Yeah, this
Speaking of which, it's time to start.
okay. Hello, Laser Brain.
Laser Brain says hello to you, and we're talking about oh,
Blew it.
ooh, ooh. Oh, there it is.
You just had to have that green screen.
Well, I think it's fun. Did you see the picture I put up today?
No.
Well, you should check that post. It's pretty good.
Okay, I'll do that right after the show.
Some of my comedy routine.
Those are my favorite.
There, like that.
There he is.
This is the famous episode where Sulu takes off his shirt and grabs a sword.
Your favorite.
This is also the episode that TNG copied, and now watching this again freshly, did not do as good a job as TOS did. It looked like a sword going through his body for me. Well, you're gonna hear about a sword because somebody else had a sword,
Somebody else did.
and his name is Sulu. Sulu.
Ooh.
So why don't you kick it off? What is going on?
All right. It's another week, a new episode of what are those crazy kids up to, right? Well, they are supposed to go to this planet and pick up people who were supposed to be were they salvaging stuff or
I
they
don't
were
remember what they're doing, but isn't it funny how they always show up to a planet to evacuate people?
yeah, they had to take them they I think those people were supposed to evacuate, but then they didn't call back, so they went over to see what happened. I think that's what so
Six of one, half dozen of another.
yeah, basically. But they go down there and all these people are frozen and they make sure to note one chick was strangled, aka that chick that's showing behind you. One guy was taking a shower with all his clothes on and was frozen in place, like he didn't know this was gonna happen. And there was another guy sitting at his console. I think those three ones.
Well, but not only is it interesting to me that you've never seen a episode of Star Trek, an episode of Star Trek would probably be correct grammar.
Yeah.
Um, Hopefully, as we're talking about this, that sort of
Hey, fun.
gets you excited to try out an episode.
Yeah, maybe this episode will be the one that gets ya. The space drunk episode.
because I'm always surprised when I watch these of how much they hold up. I mean, the bubble suit that Spock is wearing right now doesn't hold up, or that cheesy gun. But on the other hand, that's kind of fun.
It is fun. Well, that's part of why we like the show.
Or how ridiculous his suit is, because as they're moving and talking, that thing moves up and down. It's clearly not airtight.
Mhm.
Thank you, Fawn.
Well, that's the thing that comes up. I mean, they're kind of surveying around trying to figure stuff out. One of the guys takes off his glove, which
Which, why in earth did he do that?
to itch his nose.
Well, what a ding dong.
Exactly. It's same as the guy from the last episode. It's you're trained, or I guess they thought he ate a plant, but he didn't actually. It was just that other chick. But this guy actually just didn't listen to the rules and took off his glove and then got contaminated with red goo. I think it's
Yeah, right? It sort of looked like blood.
I thought it was blood, but then I remembered this episode and I'm like, I guess that's the goo.
And it's weird that effect they used. It was almost like a stop motion.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
It looked a little off. Thank you. I like the background too. It's fun.
Good pick.
Even though my ears are disappearing.
Do you wanna do you wanna take it from here and then I again?
Well, I thought it was also interesting that the episode starts right in.
Yep.
They're down there doing their thing immediately.
Yeah, they're getting to work.
Then the credits roll,
Mhm.
and then the report.
Mhm.
That's an interesting comment, and I hear that a lot about, well, I don't like sci-fi or that's not my thing. Um, and I try to tell people, the sci-fi is besides the point. Yeah, he's in a suit, and yeah, he's got the gun to test the atmosphere. But really, what the show is about is people and their relationships. I mean, you might as well think of this episode as the CSI episode because that's what it is.
Just
There's
in
a there's a mystery at the beginning, and they're unraveling the clues, and there's a timer, and they better get it done before time's up, or everybody dies.
Yep.
So you could take the whole space stuff right out of it.
Probably. I agree with that.
Because if you don't have a good story, you don't have a show. And if you look at some of the recent Star Trek, their stories suck. So, ergo, the
Show
episodes suck.
yeah.
So that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. So they get up there and they do a report, and I'm trying to remember. It wasn't very long before what's his name starts showing signs, correct?
Well, because when they got beamed back up, they were in decontamination, which was just them flashing a bunch of lights in a room. That was kind of fun. It was like a rave, but
Right.
that was decontamination. And then they also went to the doctor to get checked out, and he cleared both of them medically, like completely fine. But this guy, like, you can see he's all fidgety. He keeps like looking at his hands and he's acting weird.
By the way, can we talk about how often that transporter does not find the problem?
Yeah, well, you gotta remember, this is the olden days. It wasn't as advanced as your newfangled Star Trek, you know?
Well, Fawn, it might be a good time to revisit Star Trek because we are revisiting Star Trek and I'm enjoying it.
Do you mind?
No, I don't mind at all.
The bunny's munching on a bowl very loudly. I'm
I
sure.
couldn't hear it.
Oh, okay, that's good. I can. So Stargate Universal. I started watching them a few days ago. Um, which guy was in Stargate? I watched a few episodes of that.
I watched the Stargate movie. I didn't watch the Stargate show.
I watched a few episodes of the Stargate show when I was over at my buddy's house one time.
Uh huh.
It was okay.
Yeah, Stargate wasn't the best movie I've ever seen, but it was an interesting movie for the time.
Yeah, it's interesting. It kind of gives me Star Trek vibes, just slightly warped, like in a different universe or something.
Well, AC, now you've made a comment. The Next Generation is considered the best by a lot of people.
Nah.
And And that's the one that if I was going to introduce somebody to Star Trek to, I would start there.
Which that's how you started me.
Right. Just because there's such a big difference between the 60s and the late 80s. And Next Generation holds up a lot better as far as sort of current pop culture.
Mhm. True that.
Because the 60s was, listen, they just didn't have the technology back then. They did a lot better job with Next Generation, especially as it went on. They got better and better.
Mhm. Lost in Space.
Lost in Space, never a big Lost in, again, another 60s one. Um, I found the family in Lost in Space sort of like, a dry biscuit. They were all kind of cardboard. Other than the doctor and the robot, I
There's
didn't really get into it.
yeah, that's the OG Star Trek was in the 60s. The ones
Yeah, that's why we call this TOS, stands for the original series. 66, 67, 68, and I think it bled into 69 just for virtue of the fact that it passed January, the way TV
Mhm.
shows are started.
Cool. Get it?
Went dormant for 10 years and then boom, motion picture.
Yeah. I mean, it finally got picked up by people, you know?
Well, it was actually Star Wars is what did it.
Oh, well, that's good.
They had the cartoon, which were written by the same people who wrote the show, so you basically got more seasons of Star Trek TOS, but a lot of people don't consider the cartoon canon, but, I mean, it might as well be, it's pretty close.
Yeah, it's basically just the shows, and you got all the voices there. So I mean, you know, it's just with worse animation.
And Gene Roddenberry was trying to get a Star Trek movie going or a TV show, and he was getting a TV show called The Next Phase going. And
Mhm.
that's when Star Wars hit, and Paramount came right to him and said, "No, no, we need a movie." So he sort of converted that into a movie.
Mhm.
It wasn't until they were unhappy with how much money the motion picture made that they sort of cut Gene Roddenberry out of the movies.
Mhm.
So that's why he said, "Nuts to that! I'm going to make the Next Generation TV show then."
Mhm.
And they did a very good job. Although I will say, it wasn't until Gene left the show Next Generation that the Next Generation started getting really good.
Yeah, I think so. I remember you telling me that when we first started watching it.
Right, and that's not to say there weren't good episodes, but there's a definite change in
Oh,
edginess.
yeah.
Yeah, edginess after Gene goes. In German, Star Trek was in generally not a very big thing over here, neither 60s or late 80s. Well, Star Trek wasn't a big thing over here. That's why it got canceled. Every year they canceled it, and every year a certain group of fans tortured the executives, and they then agreed to renew for another season. And it wasn't until the final season where they kept moving the show and drastically cutting their budget that it finally just died. The fans couldn't even hold it up anymore. But it was the reruns in the 70s that, gave it new life, because then everybody was watching it during the day. Younger kids could watch it. I mean, they didn't really know what was going on, but, they liked the dumb spacesuits and the ray guns, and there was a line of dolls.
Those are always fun. I got some of the dolls.
Yeah, sort of they were the Mego dolls. You had a Captain Kirk and a Spock and a Bones.
Mhm.
I can't remember the other ones, and they had a little Enterprise bridge with a transporter. It was this, you put the guy in the door and then there was a wheel on the top and then he would disappear because he was doing that old magic trick where you roll it
Yeah.
and then he's in the back and he walks out the back and then you roll it.
Mhm.
It was great. It was made out of plastic and sort of a rubber. Really, don't get it next to the fireplace.
Yeah, don't do that.
So anyway, they're cleared. So the first guy down on the planet starts getting squirrely.
He gets squirrely, and he ends up going to lunch. And I think Sulu and somebody else is there, and they're just chatting like normal buddies do. And then they try to engage him in conversation, and he like snaps at them. He's all
Right.
being agitated.
Hmm.
Oh, that's weird. Take it away.
Well, so eventually he starts leaving the bridge and not doing his duty, and
Mm.
they take him to sick bay, and he starts actually dying.
Well, do you
And
know what happened?
what?
He started threatening Sulu and the other guy with a knife and then turned it on himself.
Oh, so he stabbed himself?
Yeah.
How
And
did I miss that?
it was supposed to be a non-fatal wound and the surgery was successful, but then he died anyway.
Hmm.
Dr. McCoy was perplexed because it's like, why did he die? Everything went according to plan and there's nothing wrong with him. That was the mystery that spurred on that. And then you can see that I think while he was threatening them with a knife, there must have been some skin contact or something because the two people at the lunch start acting squirrely, same as that guy. And that's when Sulu gets his shirt off and sword and starts being a Three Musketeers guy. And then
Right.
I can't remember, I think it was the other guy who got super Irish all of a sudden. I think that's what it was.
Yep. He kept walking around acting Irish and telling people that they wish they were Irish.
Yeah, that's
And
basically what it was.
and anybody who had a problem, they wouldn't have a problem if they were Irish.
Was he the same guy who ended up locking himself in that room and saying he was the captain, or was that a different guy?
Very same.
Very same guy. Okay, so at some point he locks himself in the engine room and says over the PA system, which is basically what it is, that he's the captain. And he's saying, what was he saying? He was saying we all get ice cream and extra help in a ice cream in the mess hall. And then anybody who would be yelling at him would be like, oh, no ice cream for you.
Yep. And then he started singing over the PA, and apparently it really started irritating Captain Kirk.
Well, because he kept doing it over and over and over again. And he would say, well, one more time.
Now, the thing we forgot to mention is
Yeah.
the planet has some kind of weird gravity. It's about to explode,
Yep. This
and
is.
it starts pulling the Enterprise into the atmosphere. So they have to keep compensating.
Mm-hmm.
That is the urgency on why this situation needs to be fixed within, the 50 minutes of the show. Because every now and then the orbit starts going like this as they're getting closer, and then they do something, and then it slows back down to normal, and then the planet starts drinking a little more power, and then it starts speeding up. But your Irishman there in engineering decides to turn off the engines.
Yep. It's
So
power.
now the ship is the planet's just going, and they've got a timer. It's like 20 minutes
Yeah. I think
left.
20 minutes, and Scotty's trying to fix it. Scotty's not infected, and Ahura is not infected. Which I had a question.
Mhm.
At this point, we're kind of guessing that it's transmitted through touch. It's
Right.
accurate. At some point, Sulu grabs Ahura and is like saying, I will protect you, fair maiden, but she doesn't get infected.
Yeah, maybe if you watch his hands, he doesn't touch her skin though. Remember, he grabs her by the side.
Okay. I was wondering about that. I wasn't paying close enough attention, but I was wondering about that.
And it could also be the fact that maybe she was getting sick, but she was a late infectee.
Possibly.
So those two things could explain that problem.
Yeah. I don't so they're trying to get into that room. They're trying to get the power back on. The power back on is going to take more time than they have. And then
Well, there's a problem. It takes them forever to get into the engineering because Scotty has got to drill a hole in the wall.
yep,
But the weird thing is he's drilling it pretty fast, and
mhm.
then when he needs to go slow down, he slows down
Mhm.
until Spock comes in and chews his ass,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden he starts speeding up.
Yeah.
So it's funny how that works.
Well, cuz everybody's starting to get irked by all the weird happenings. Even Spock, people people calling for Spock to cuz this guy was like hitting on this chick and they're like, Spock, come over here. And he's like yelling at everybody. And then
So
oh,
what they get infected by is they never really tell you what it is, but it essentially, I mean, it kills you in the end. which is sort of worse than what the symptoms are. The symptoms are you appear drunk.
They
So
well,
all of your discipline and sort of social uh blocks and your politeness starts disappearing and you start getting more id.
loopy, and they end up finding out that it was caused by the water on that planet, is what
Right.
and
But there's some virus in there.
yeah, it's transmitted through touch and it gets into the bloodstream and then it starts acting like alcohol, but like
Right.
a form of it.
Right. So, and then they do this cheesy sort of thing where, oh well, Sulu is a swashbuckler at heart. That's why he turned into like a Three Musketeer. I'd never seen Sulu.
No, they just made that up because they
R-
thought vodka bacteria river. That's perfect.
Absolutely true. That's what it this is. What if the whole crew became drunk and they're trying to save the ship? That was the pitch, I'm sure, in the writing room.
So,
So they put a space twink on it. But I want to mention one thing because you mentioned the inhibitions thing.
mhm,
This is a very big character building moment for Mr. Spock
yes.
because we find out he's not that he has zero emotions, is that he's got super discipline.
Mhm.
And when he gets infected, his discipline breaks down, and then he is ashamed of his behavior.
So what happens is Nurse Chapel gets infected by the patient that's in there, and then she confesses her love to Spock, and she like touches his arm while doing it, and he's like, "Oh, I'm disciplined or whatever." But then he starts to crack too, and Kirk needs him because he knows all the formula they need to save the ship. It's
Well, so there's a theory that even though it takes 30 minutes to turn the engines back on and they have 20 minutes,
mhm,
that there's some way to mix the matter and antimatter in a faster, quick explosion
mhm,
that does not blow up the ship.
yeah.
So that's sort of the theory they're working off of. That's the only chance they've got. So they're going to roll the, dice.
But Spock is the one who knows that theory, that formula. Kirk needs him, and now he's all space drunk, as you put it. And he is crying and upset. And like you said, he says he feels shame for these emotions that, like, whenever he has them. And then Kirk slaps him in the face to snap him out of it. He does it again, and then this time Spock hits him back with his super strength, which I thought was a very fun scene. And
And
then
not the last time we're going to see that.
yeah, but it snaps him out of it like enough. And then but the problem is cuz he slapped him, he touched him, now he's got the drunkenness and Kirk starts acting weird.
Yeah, and I just know I don't know anything about the writing room. I haven't read anything about it. I mean, I'm sure someone has spilled the tea on this episode, but that is exactly right.
Basic.
All those this in the 60s, these guys were drinking constantly and smoking constantly. And that's why when these guys got older, they all looked like shit and died prematurely, most of them, because they were drinking every night and they were drinking a lot. So you knew somewhere, if you're a writer, that's going to enter into your episode.
Mhm.
And all the people sitting around the table are going to go, oh, yeah, 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 I've been there. Great idea.
Well, go ahead, finish it off for us, at least for the plot part.
Well, so they break into engineering. They arrest, I think he's O'Reilly, isn't he?
I think so, yeah.
They arrest him, they start trying to fix the engines, and they're waiting for Spock to give the intermix formula. He finally does. At this same time, on a different track, McCoy has discovered a cure, and he gives it to who did he give it to?
Um, Sulu. He gives it to
And then yeah, that's right, and then Sulu goes, "Oh, hey, I was on the bridge, man." And they go, "Release him, send him back to work."
yeah, and then McCoy. This is a move I really liked. Kirk was getting back on the bridge, and McCoy, right at the door, just shoots him with that shot that has the antidote in it. Just, just in case there's any resistance at all. But he was ready for that entrance.
Our German friend has brought up a good point. Yes, it was socially acceptable to do the drinking, and I wasn't making a moral judgment on the drinking. I was just telling you that people who drink constantly, the life leaches out of them. And then you add 3 packs of cigarettes a day, and then you add the bad, eating that they did. That's why these people got really sick. They essentially when what the more you poison your body, the less life you have in it, generally speaking, outside of, crazy diseases or car wrecks or stuff like that. That's why you see, so sort of like not really the boomers, because these are the parents of the boomers. A lot of people uh, attribute a lot of this to World War II and fighting in the war and the horrors that they had to endure, and that they sort of retreated into whatever drug they could find, alcohol, and then all those guys like to get it was sort of a you know this is a time in the world after the Depression, after World War II. People had a little spending money because our economy was on fire. So you could hang out. You could build a bar in your basement. You could have friends over and then y'all listen to whatever music you're listening to and drink yourselves silly. So it was just, debauchery. And I don't think you would get an episode like this today, because alcoholism is definitely frowned upon, especially with the drink drive or drug drive that there is. So I don't. Sometimes they cover it a little bit, with like Next Generation did the future soldiers had to sniff something to keep them going, and also the Jem'Hadar were controlled by the drugs that they were getting from the people that were controlling them. So you do sort of get that drug parallel because drugs are still an issue.
Hmm.
But the cigarette issue has been mostly arrested, and I would say a good portion of the drinking has been arrested. Well, you're right about that, but, today with you can't make ends meet. This would be the time to start drinking. There's some sort of escape because you can't even buy groceries now. So,
Woo!
I mean,
Fun.
I guess you could look at that either way, right? The '60s people had a bunch of extra money, so they could blow it on, uh the alcohol and the cigarettes and stuff. But then on the other hand, the '80s, they were all doing cocaine because they were making money on Wall Street. I don't know. I will just tell you, I've seen people from the '80s that look a hell of a lot better than the ones that I saw from the '60s. So I'm guessing that cocaine is better for you than cigarettes and alcohol every night. Cocaine, you're at least metered because the stuff is very expensive. And
Hmm.
now there's a heroin problem. Heroin, what's the new one called? Fentanyl, the super heroin. You've got that problem where people are just dying standing up. So if you've ever seen any of those videos of them driving through Philadelphia, where the people are just in the middle of the street, frozen, some of them are doing giving themselves a back jack, and they'll stand there for hours. So there's still kind of problems around, but whatever. I don't see a lot of alcoholic shows anymore. That was a big thing for a while in episodes, the moms and alcoholics. So she's affecting. There were countless movies of the week on it and TV episodes. I don't see that as much anymore. It's
How?
almost as if drinking. Uh, yeah, but Cheers was a goof, right? You never saw anybody. Norm drank himself silly every night, but there were comments of, "Hey, let me give you a ride home, Norm." So there may not have been any drink drive there. But when Cheers started in 1980, there wasn't the huge push. There was no Mothers Against Drunk Driving yet, or it hadn't really gained traction until that started happening. The police, the court system would always just give you a slap on the wrist, go home, sleep it off, you scoundrel. Now they throw the book at you. But anyways, they go, the intermix formula works. The Enterprise pulls back from the planet and is safe, and everybody's getting their inoculations. I hope you loved the part where Kirk walks onto the bridge and that McCoy rips his shirt half off and then gives him his serum.
Did I not just say that?
Did you? I missed it because I was thinking of the other thing. But
Oh,
what's funny is the hypo spray works through clothes, so I'm not sure why you did that.
yeah, I said he was ready at that door. I was talking for about 10 minutes on it. So,
Yeah, I was thinking of the drink drive.
mhm.
I don't like drink drivers.
I know. Who does?
I think certain people think. Well, see, the problem with drink drive is you drink and then you think you're fine, and then you go. I've yet to meet a drunk who didn't think they were perfectly fine to go drive their car. That's the problem.
Yep.
It lowers your brain power. And
I
enough of my speech on alcohol and cigarettes.
Yeah, you did that for about 20 minutes?
Well, I was asked a question, and I got a lot of thoughts on it.
Uh-huh.
And I do think it's interesting how much time has changed. Every time we watch something that's not from this time, it's always weird to me and could be very shocking and jarring on how much things have changed. And you're a bit aghast. If anybody has watched Eddie Murphy Delirious lately, uh, we were laughing our balls off in 1983. Quite shocking to hear it today in 2025. That's all my point is.
Mhm.
If I were going to try to hook somebody on Star Trek, I would start with the Next Generation. And the sad news is, you're going to have to struggle through seasons 1 and 2 because it doesn't start getting creamy until season 3. There are some very good episodes in 1 and 2, but you're mostly going to be wondering why you're watching it. Usually, when I try to get somebody to watch a show, I'll say, "Well, watch the pilot and then watch the next episode." If you're not getting it by then, but Star Trek was kind of a different show that way, to where they didn't really understand what they were doing. They were trying to make the '60s show in 1987 until somebody said, "Hey, stupid, it's the '80s, and we're veering into the '90s. You can't you can't do it that way." And so that's why the Next Generation. It's hard for me to explain to you just how big the Next Generation was. It at season 3 with that finisher with the Borg, and there was that cliffhanger, you could not find anybody that wasn't talking about that, which was amazing for a show that was on syndication, your 5th or 6th channel down the mark that most people didn't watch, certainly not in prime time. Everybody was on the big 3. So they did a lot of good stuff there. What they learned from the Next Generation, they took over to Deep Space Nine, but you get quite a different show on Deep Space Nine that
Mhm.
I think is looked at better today than it was back then. Because I remember we all used to call it Deep Suck Nine.
Mhm.
I quit watching in the middle of the first season, and I didn't go back until they added Worf.
Mm.
So, and then even then, I watched a little bit of Worf, and I'm like, I still don't like this. I'm not going to watch it. And it wasn't until years later, when it was on every morning before I went to work, that I was started watching season 6 and 7. Every episode built on the next one. It was finally serialized rather than all random. You needed to watch the week before episode to understand what was going on, and on and on and on. And then I thought it was fantastic. And then also 1995, you get Voyager, which is my favorite.
Mine's DS9.
And I know a lot of people go, "Oh, Voyager." Yeah, Voyager. That's the best one. And Enterprise was very good too. So you can kiss my Game of Thrones 1 and 2 were boring. Yeah, it took me a while to get in. By the way, I'll shock you. I never loved Game of Thrones. Every time I watched an episode, I felt tired and a little bad after each episode. It was such a hammer to the head, those episodes. I mean, there's that show is that show is a tough watch. I mostly like to watch shows where I'm laughing. There's no laughing in Game of Thrones, but I watched it all. So, anyways, now here comes the interesting part. Everybody's saved, everything's back to normal, but what do we find out?
They traveled back in time.
They mixed that formula so hot that the Enterprise was moving way faster than it had any business traveling, and the chronometer started rolling backwards.
What did they say? 76 hours they went back in?
Right. 3 days.
3 days.
And then a throwaway line at the end is, well, now that we know how to do the mix, we can travel back in time anytime we want to. And then
Ah,
another guy goes, well, I mean, I don't know if it's ever found to be safe.
maybe. Anyway, do 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 do.
Through the history of Star Trek, they never used that again.
Yep.
They
Well,
never they never used the intermix formula. They did other things, but not the intermix.
maybe they found out it wasn't safe and it was a once in a lifetime shot, Doc.
I mean, it's awfully dangerous, right, to light that fuel on fire like that.
Mm-hmm. That's probably what it was. You can just fill in the blanks yourself.
However, in Star Trek 4, to go back in time, they drive really close and really fast to the sun and do a slingshot around it.
Mm-hmm.
Not that safe either.
No, it ain't.
Not to mention, who came up with that theory? Why would that work?
Superman.
I believe more in the DeLorean than I do driving around the sun, but whatever.
I'm sure there's some science to back it up.
Hmm. Okay. Maybe
I
some junk science. So, what are your final thoughts? What do you think of this episode? How many
don't know.
laser gun disease detectings do you give it?
I'm gonna go 3, Doc.
That's a good score.
I think that is medium score for out of 5.
See this right? I don't know if you can see it with my screen.
Very little.
There, can you see that?
Yes.
It's black foam.
Uh
I
huh.
use it I use it as a microphone stand for that one microphone to so it absorbs some of the when you hit the cabinet and stuff.
Mhm.
I had a little piece of it that I needed. I was putting it in between the saucer section and the body of the Voyager J to keep the nose up.
Mhm.
By the way, it didn't work, it didn't fit. As I'm sitting here, it starts moving out of the corner of my eye. And I'm like, "What the hell is that?"
It was
Thankfully, it was just a piece of foam.
it was coming to life.
Yep. An idiot came up with that. The slingshot son? Yeah.
What was your score on this episode? Mine was a 3.
I don't like drunk people, so it's gonna lose points for that. But the character development on Spock,
Is important.
very important. Um,
Nurse Chapel. She got
there's
some.
Chapel, yeah, but she's kinda one-dimensional. They never let her do anything.
She got some screen time.
Yeah, but it was I don't know. That felt tacked on too,
Well,
'cause
they.
we'd never seen her give Spock a second look. So the Spock thing, Kirk's shirt torn in half, that's gotta go up. Time travel, that will always get an up for me, even though it was the lamest time travel possible.
Mhm.
And that bubble wrap suit, I've gotta put it up. So I'm gonna say 3 also. I'm gonna go with you.
Woo! I know what's up.
There are a lot of positives and one massive negative, so I'm gonna put it at 3. Not an episode I go to a lot. If I would have saw this and we weren't watching these, I would have skipped this one.
Probably, but as you're watching it, there's some good bits in there, and it's enough to make it enjoyable watch.
Well, that's why you should never skip episodes.
Yep.
And by the way, our friend from Germany, if you're going to do this, keep in mind we are watching these in production order, not air date. Because whenever they release these Betamax tapes, the boob who was making them didn't bother to check and put them in production order. So keep that in mind. If you watch them in date of which they aired, you're going to be confused on why we're jumping around. And
True
that's
that.
all I have to say about that. You have anything else to add to this Star Trek boutique episode of TOS The Naked Time?
I think there was just too much little bits of cream in there for you to ignore it.
Yeah. As I'm looking at that bubble suit too. So I'm sorry you didn't get to see my post today trying to tickle everybody's ass with a feather,
I'm sorry.
but
Lion here I trying to kill and I just got him. So,
hey,
oh,
good for you, man.
yeah.
Can I look the right order up? On Google, if you type in, by the way, I don't know what you mean by right order. You can type in Google Star Trek TOS production order. And then the first page that will come up is all the episodes in production order. I assume that if you typed in Star Trek TOS episodes, they would put them in air order of which they appeared on air. That's a mouthful. And this is, by the way, this is tape number 7. So this is our 7th show. You want to go back to the first show and watch as you watch them along, because this one, of course, is spoiled for you. And I do. We're coming up on a very good episode, Balance of Terror. I don't know that I would recommend production order. I like to watch things as they aired. Um, but for the purposes of this show, because it's supposed to be a Betamax tape show, and we didn't even realize what was going on, other than I was thinking this episode is not correct. If you want to follow along with the show, you absolutely go with production order, because these episodes are all over the place and they never connect. It doesn't matter. You could start with the final episode because they don't. No. I mean, there's character buildment, but building, but there's it doesn't follow a straight line. So that's why the syndication was so good. You could watch any one of these. I mean, you could watch Spock's Brain, which is a season 3 episode, and have a great time, even though you haven't watched episode 1.
Yep.
The only piece of advice I would give you is don't bother watching The Cage, because that was the original pilot that they threw out, and there's a different Captain Kirk and a different doctor and a different first officer. Um, I wouldn't watch The Cage is for super Star Trek nerds who want to see every morsel. And later here, pretty soon, they took The Cage and made 2 TOS episodes out of it in the wrapped in a court martial, and you see most of The Cage anyway. And you sure as whatever don't need to watch The Cage twice. Okay, so if you're gonna follow the show, then, my best I don't even remember what our first show was. Do you remember?
What do you mean by that?
What tape did we watch first?
Hmm. I don't remember that, but you can just look at our order.
Yeah, you can just look on the page. I guess I should have numbered them, huh? You can go by date.
It'll be fine. Just whatever the first Star Trek episode is we talked about.
And I
No,
don't think we ever taped one of these, did we?
I don't think so.
Okay. By the way, speaking of taped, you will not see us tomorrow. Well, you will and you won't. We will not be live. The episode was taped on Monday, finishing off fundamentalism, because we are not available, because there is just too much to do this weekend. There is 1,000 things packed into a very short span of time.
And I'll be at
So
work.
and you'll be at work. So, oh, you're at work at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, prepare yourselves for either we're shifting the schedule or something will have to be done about that
Well,
if it happens again.
they give me a random schedule every time, so
Not a complaint, just an explanation.
okay. You ready to go, G?
Yep. So I want to thank everybody that came. All Stars, AC, Fawn, our new friend from Germany who's participating. Thank you very much. Do you
Hendrick.
have a Discord where you update your schedule? So what I do is you'll see it on my channel. You'll get a post that will tell you, hey, here's a reminder. So if you watch the show, you're going to say, oh, you're usually going to see us on Fridays and Saturdays. And I try to keep to that schedule. That's why we taped an episode on Monday to show on Saturday. Because when you start moving the show around, people don't know when to watch it. And it's irritating. And plus, if you are sporadic with your posts, people don't like that either. And they just go, oh, I don't need to see it anymore. So in order to keep people engaged and get more people, you've got to keep the episodes coming. That was my Mr. Spock.
Was that Spock?
Yes.
You do a lame Spock, by the way.
I can
Uh,
do this. See, look.
that's pretty cool.
This is Pac-Man on Star Trek. Get it?
Well, have a good night and good weekend, Hendrick.
Yes, thank you. And I hope you enjoy the episodes. And by the way, I mean these episodes are everywhere, right? I'm sure they're in syndication somewhere. They're definitely you can get the Blu-rays are almost free, which I don't understand. The DVDs probably even more free. Probably be harder to track down these Betamax, but doesn't matter. Also, when you're watching these, if you've got the newer versions of the DVDs or the Blu-rays, you can choose to watch the original 60s special effects, or you can watch the updated, completely remastered and redone special effects. They spent a lot of coin bringing this thing back up. Exciting, right?
Very.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We will you can watch the episode tomorrow. If for some reason I'm not busy during that moment, I might pop on the chat if there is can you do a live chat on a premiere?
No.
I've seen some people do it.
Okay, you can try to figure that out.
Yeah, right. I don't even really know what Discord is, so yeah, good luck to me. So probably not, but I hope you enjoy tomorrow's episode because you will be shocked at some of the things that are said in that episode. Probably stuff you never even considered. So get ready to enjoy. And by the way, here's a preview of next week's episode. Will not be the Pet Shop Boys. It will be Garbage. Their new album just dropped today. And as I drove and listened to it, I got a nice chunk of it listened to today. And I'm giving it a thumbs up so far
That's good.
because I'm liking it. Most everything about it is pretty good. And there's one thing that's bothering me, and I will mention that next week if I still feel that way. Good night.
Good night.
I need I
Mm.
need a good I need a good outro, don't I? How about that? You like that one?